I'm Julie Zenner, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North. Senator Janet Bewley is the new Democratic leader in the Wisconsin State Senate. We talked with her about what that means for northern Wisconsin. The Lake Superior Zoo and Great Lakes Aquarium may be closed to the public, but taking care of the animals is a 24-hour-a-day job. A local man is helping fight COVID-19 in Italy, one of the countries hardest hit by the virus. And we remember Dr. Robert Powless, who passed away this past weekend. These stories coming your way next on Almanac North. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thank you for watching. Dennis is off this week as we alternate hosting the program during the pandemic. This week's show was recorded on Thursday afternoon and includes pre-recorded interviews. Wisconsin State Senator Janet Bewley of Mason has risen to a top position in the legislature. She was elected by her peers to be the Democratic leader of the Senate. Almanac North producer Greg Rell talked with her this week about what that added influence will mean for her district.
I have always tried very hard to represent them well, to bring that northern Wisconsin voice to Madison. And it's a bit of a fight, you know, for me, even I always have to push on that because people don't understand what it's like to be truly in the north, to have fewer traffic lights than any other district in the state, to have more tiny small towns where you go grocery shopping at the dollar store because that's what's open when you go home at night. I don't have a Target store in my entire district. And down here, you kind of freak out if you don't have these kinds of stores available. And the things that people are interested in are almost always very similar to the rest of the state, but we typically don't get our share. It's easy to sort of write us off. So, but now that I'm in leadership, there is this sudden awareness that, you know, Janet, that's the first time someone from northern Wisconsin has been in leadership in a very long time, And so it's really good to see that there's an awareness that this whole part, anytime I can put northern Wisconsin in people's minds in Madison, I'm happy. And so now I can do it through this responsibility now as well.
Let's pivot now to kind of the topic du jour, the topic that's been dominating everybody for quite a few weeks now. It's COVID-19. Last month, the legislature passed a COVID relief bill. A lot of Democrats didn't feel like it went far enough. Talk a little bit about that relief bill and what it does and what you'd like to see going forward.
It was pretty much geared to the CARES Act of the federal government. And so in order to take the full advantage of whatever money the feds give us in Wisconsin, we have to make some adjustments to our laws. So certain things had to be kind of fine-tuned so that they would correspond perfectly so that the federal money could come right in. At the same time, it would and should have been an opportunity not to just get ready for federal money, but to have the state itself pony up some of their own dollars. Now, we're seeing all around us that neighbors are helping neighbors. Nonprofits are doing everything they can. We have individual people going out and saying thank you. We have all kinds of food drives, anything we can do to help our neighbor. So when you've got all these people that are pitching in, the federal government comes along, and then you go to the state, and the state says no. The state said, we will give this cause, these communities, these healthcare centers, these county governments and health departments, nothing. There was not one penny of state money in that legislation. And I think that is what the Democrats were seriously disappointed.
What are you hearing from your constituents in northwestern Wisconsin, Ashland, Bayfield counties, the counties that you represent? How is COVID-19 affecting them both personally and economically?
Well, of course, there are a lot of people who are out of work, but at the same time, there are a lot of people who have been feeling this way for a long time. But I think the COVID circumstance sort of lays bare just how fragile we are in the North when it comes to the infrastructure, both physical infrastructure and social infrastructure. So when you need, for example, to test, who's going to pay for the tests and who's going to pay for the people to administer the tests, and how do we set that up? Well, we got pretty much, but counties don't have any money. The state didn't give it to them, so now they're just waiting, and they're just pretty much, putting things together as they can. And when you know that the food banks are already in high demand, when something like this happens and they run out of food, everything sort of becomes very apparent that we don't have what we need. And then one of the ones that I've been trying to make well known is internet. So now we have kids who we have been saying all along, they can't do homework at home because they don't have the internet at home. And all of the people that have been set, that are aware that, well, maybe they can work from home. There are many, many people who can't work from home. And then, the hardest part of it is, imagine if you're out in the country and all you have is a telephone and a TV set. How do you get help? Everybody says, go to our website. Just log on and Google it. If you're out there and you've got a phone and that's it, how do you find out who to call? And you can't. It's really hard. You can try 211, but sometimes you don't even know what question to ask. And I think that we've got to level the playing field once and for all and acknowledge that access to the internet must be made throughout the state.
The governor has talked about his Badger bounce back plan, the plan to incrementally reopen the economy and state services and so on. What do you think of that? There's been some pushback from some of the business community saying we need to open faster, but he's going by the science, he says.
Right. Well, he's going by the recommendations of the the Trump administration that you have to show 14 days. You have to show 14 days of no increase in new cases. But if you don't test, how do you know that? I mean, how do you say, okay, in Douglas County or in Bayfield, we're not testing enough to come up with that. So as much as the businesses make a very, very valid case for just how much economic damage is happening, we cannot prove that we are at the point where the federal government says we are allowed to open. So the governor is doing the best he can to open those incremental things that could be considered essential, or they're done in a way that could not affect anyone, the transfer of COVID. And I'm hoping that we are going to be able to do the testing and the tracking in a way that we're going to be able to open a lot more things a lot quicker than we thought.
And that seems like it's especially vitally important to your district, where summer tourism season is a big, big deal for a lot of the areas in northern Wisconsin. And
that's right.
You could still have a summer tourist season, or what's your outlook right now?
I hope we can. I mean, very often, I'm in Bayfield County, and up in the city of Bayfield, we often would say that the true summer season is 4th of July weekend. And we hope that people will continue to realize there's lots of wonderful things to do year round in the North, but truly it doesn't start to get kind of warm and where you can bring your whole family until late June. So we have not given up by any means.
What do you think the agenda will be going forward now for the Senate and for the legislature in general? Is there going to be some more action, you think, to help out the businesses and the economy?
Well, I know that we are ready. The Democrats are ready to go back to the floor. We would go back to the floor right away. And we already have legislation. We proposed many amendments to the COVID bill that was passed 3 weeks ago. And so we have legislation ready to get aid to small businesses, to get aid to the small farmers, and get money out there to help those who need it the most. I don't think we're going to come back. I don't think the Republicans want to be quite honest. I would love to hear what they have to say about it, but I am not getting a lot of encouragement from the Republican leadership that they will have another call for another session before summer.
Well, Senator Janet Bewley, Democrat from Mason, thank you very much for joining us and good luck going forward.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Local attractions that depend on visitors for revenue are taking a heavy hit from the effects of the coronavirus. It may be some time before the public can once again visit the local zoo or the aquarium, but the needs of the animals must still be met. Both facilities have furloughed staff and sought federal funding to fill the gaps. Well, here to tell us more is Jay Walker, Executive Director of the Great Lakes Aquarium, and LYNN HABHEGGER is the acting CEO of the Lake Superior Zoo. And thanks to both of you for being here. We really appreciate you coming into the studio.
Thank you.
Jay, it must be very strange to be operating a facility like the aquarium without guests coming in and out the door. What's happening at the aquarium right now to cut costs while still making sure that all of those animals in your care are well cared for?
Right. You know, we receive 80% of our revenue comes from guest traffic, from programming, from events, and so to not have people coming into the facility it really makes rather difficult because we're not having those revenue streams. But yet, as you mentioned, we still have to maintain. We can't just shut our lights off and close the doors for a few weeks. So we have to take care of our animal collection. And so right now, what we're doing is we have 11 staff that are there maintaining the feeding the animals and taking care of the filtration systems. And then, as you mentioned, to cut down on costs, we've been shutting off certain pumps and lights and things like that will help reduce costs. So it's definitely weird to walk through the building and not have the people walking around and to people enjoying what our our exhibits and the animals is definitely bizarre, to say the least.
Lynn, a similar scenario at the Lake Superior Zoo?
Very similar, very quiet in our main building. We also had to do some things to manage our costs, and we furloughed quite a bit of staff, keeping on our animal care team as our priority. And so it is very quiet, and we miss our visitors.
How much does the zoo depend on admissions in terms of your budget?
It is the largest portion of our budget, as it is with the aquarium, upwards of 60%. The rest of our revenue is made up of grants, donations, some governmental support. So it is the bulk of our existence.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned governmental support, and there are some resources that both organizations either have been able to tap into or are trying to tap into right now. Talk about that right now and what the financial picture looks like in terms of emergency resources available or secured. Both of you, maybe start with Jay.
Sure. We have received a disaster loan from the SBA, and that is we received about $500,000 of funding there that we actually are using to pay the bills that have come up through this time in March and to take care of animal food and some of those types of things. But really the primary goal for that is actually to save that money and to use it in emergency type of situations. If we really hope to see the aquarium open again as soon as possible once, we hear from the governor as far as when we can open. Hoping early summer that we'd be able to do that. And, but we, understanding that there's like, what's the new normal? Like how many people are going to be coming to Duluth? And there's a lot of people that are doing, Visit Duluth is doing a lot of effort to try to market, to bring people. They'll be doing a lot of efforts to bring people to our town. But we don't know. There is some concerns about maybe having lesser numbers and having to reduce our budgets, and so having that money there is really helpful as sort of a backup plan, really, because obviously we even though the terms are really good, we having to pay that off, it'll take some time to get that paid down. So we really would like to use that as a bridge to get us to the point of where we can open again, and then be able to just keep some of it as an emergency fund again the next year, because there's a lot of discussion that we're going to be seeing, as many know, this might affect us for the next year, could affect us 2 years. So just wanting to have that helpful. The other piece is the payroll loan that many people have. We haven't received that yet, but we're in the application process, and it's we should actually be seeing that soon. And so that will help us to bring our staff back, because as like Lynn said, we laid off 46 of our staff, and so.
Lynn, what about resources that the zoo's been able to secure?
Well, out of those two largest funding mechanisms offered by the government, we are totally opposite on that. The zoo has received the payroll protection program loan through the SBA that has helped us bring our full-time staff and several of our part-time staff back onto the payroll and helping us prepare for when we do reopen, and putting all those pieces in place that we will need to have in place to satisfy the safety and security of our guests and our employees when we reopen to the public. We have applied for the economic injury disaster loan as well, and we are in that queue. So
just wait and see on that one, huh?
Correct.
Now, you had some big plans for the year. Bear Country was supposed to open up. You had announced that there was going to be a new childcare preschool program at the zoo. What's happened to those plans right now? Are things still moving along behind the scenes?
Absolutely. We are moving forward. Our construction projects continue to move forward. They were fully funded with other sources, so we went ahead with those, continuing to move those forward. So we have a Bear Country that's under construction right now, that we are anticipating opening at the late summer, early fall of this year yet, in 2020. And we are still moving ahead with our preschool plans as well for September enrollment.
Mm-hmm. And Jay, the aquarium, of course, this was the 20th anniversary year, so you had lots of things planned, including a major new exhibit and lots of changes within the facility to kind of freshen things up. What's going forward? What's on hold for right now?
Right, we were going to be opening a crocodile exhibit this spring, and that actually got put on hold. But we do have a large display, a gallery display that we're redoing for the fall called H2O, and that's the popular water table exhibit that we have at the aquarium that pretty much every child in Duluth has gotten wet in at one point or another. We'll be replacing that and bringing in a bunch of different interactive exhibits about the properties of water, and then also really focusing in on how the watershed of Duluth works. And so that's still on happening, because we received some funding from the legacy grant money. So that we're still moving forward with.
Mm-hmm. And both organizations have members. Has the public really stepped forward to help out and help make sure that the places that they love here in town keep moving forward?
We're experiencing people coming forward. New donors that we have not realized in the past have come forward to help us to feed the animals. All of our donations that we receive right now goes strictly to animal care during this time while our revenues are down. So we're seeing that. We're seeing great support from our members. Everybody's excited to come back when the time is right. And we will have new exhibits waiting for them when they do.
Mm-hmm. Jay?
We also have seen great support. A lot of people giving gifts, and like Lynn, our donations are going to animal care right now. In fact, if you go to our website, you can find ways to help feed some of the animals. It takes $20 to feed a sturgeon for the week. Just throwing that out there. $60 can feed an otter for 2 weeks. But we have an Amazon wish list too that people have just been sending all kinds of gifts to our animal care staff, and so that's been just excellent. And so we've been receiving a lot of support in that way, and where we really need it too. And as a nonprofit, mission-driven organization, this is so super helpful to have this, having such generous folks.
And it sounds like the zoo is scheduled to open no sooner than July 1st, but I understand you're exploring ways to maybe be creative about allowing the public some access.
We are, in tandem with the city, we'll be working on plans to possibly open our outside areas prior to July 1st. That's nothing guaranteed, of course, but it's options. It all is very dependent on having a safety plan in place, a pandemic operating plan in place, and also being the time is right, giving us the time to prepare for that. It also depends on what the governor and the state does and the CDC's recommendations are. So all of those pieces we're trying to fit into place.
Well, people are looking forward to summer and hope that they're able to visit both of the attractions and all the other great places here in Duluth over the course of the summer. But thanks for what you're doing, and good luck with the animal care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. This week, we remember Dr. Robert Powless, a respected leader and inspiration to many in our region. Dr. Powless was a Korean War veteran and member of the Oneida Nation of Indians of Wisconsin. He started and became director of the American Indian Studies program at UMD and later at the College of St. Scholastica. The American Indian Community Housing Organization renamed Trepanier Hall the Dr. Robert Powless Cultural Center in his honor in 2017. Dr. Powless also co-produced a weekly half-hour TV program, Indian Viewpoint, from 1972 to 1982 for WDIO and WDSE. Dr. Robert Powless was 87 years old. And finally this week, we heard from a Duluth naval officer who currently is stationed in Italy. Roger Reinert is helping in the fight against COVID-19, which has taken a heavy toll on that Mediterranean country. He talked about the situation there in a video he recorded for us this week.
Hi everyone, Lieutenant Commander Roger Reinert coming to you from Napoli, Naples, Italy, where I've been deployed since March 30th in support of the U.S. 6th Fleet, leading a COVID crisis action team. So I think, as most people at home know, Italy has been one of the hardest hit countries in the world with COVID. The infection first started here in January. The country went into a national lockdown in February and has been battling COVID ever since. So good news from here, over the last week or so, we've started to see an overall decline in infections. We've seen an increase in recovered patients, and we've continued to see a decrease in the number of folks that are in the ICU. When I first got here, the restrictions were severe, much more stringent than at home. No outdoor activity allowed at all, so no running, no PT, no hiking, the things that I'm seeing folks doing at home. And places like restaurants and bars closed, period. No takeout, no take home, no delivery at all. And a much more limited ability of people to move around. Really only one member of a household to go for groceries and medicine, and that was it. So with the positive trend in numbers recently, the Italian government has now announced that there's going to be a three-part phased re-entry or reopening of the economy. The first phase will be on May 4th, and that will primarily allow folks just to get outside. Social distancing or physical distancing, as we're being clear on, of 6 feet with masks is required. And that's something that I would just share from here, is that masks and gloves, latex or rubber, are a thing, and they're also mask usage is mandated on all DoD facilities now, both stateside and here. So that first step will come on May 4th. There's then a 2-week period of just seeing how that works. And if the trend continues in a positive direction, we don't see any outbreaks spiking anywhere, then 2 weeks later there will be another phased reopening in the economy. Again, a 2-week period to examine and watch what happens with that. And then finally, anticipating somewhere around the beginning of June, kind of a pretty much reopening of the economy. And that here is when bars and restaurants and some of those hair cutters, some of those types of places will finally reopen. So I'm doing well. This has been a really gratifying mission. I feel I'm very blessed to be here making a contribution to the Navy and to our partners during this time. And I am super excited to soon, maybe in a month, get a haircut. So hope everyone at home is safe and well also, and I look forward to seeing you when I get back home this summer. Thanks.
If you are not feeling well, Essentia Health and St. Luke's both have hotlines. They are answering 24 hours a day to answer your health questions. Take advantage of those and other online resources like the Minnesota Department of Health and Wisconsin Department of Health Services websites. You can follow Almanac North on our social media sites while you are staying home to defeat the virus. You will find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and visit the WDSE website for program updates and more information about special COVID-19 programming here at the station. Good luck to all of the anglers in Wisconsin for the fishing opener this weekend, and thanks to our guests and the crew here at Almanac North. I'm Julie Zenner. We'll see you next time.